Time is running out for most of us who need to report according to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive with the beginning of next year. Even though I'm working since 20 years now in sustainability, the CSRD is also relatively new for me. Sure, I reported according to other standards before, like GRI and SASB. However, I did not write a full CSRD report yet. I have a job coming up and I need to be ready when I start it. Because once I started, I will not have the time to skill up. I need to act quickly and to make things happen. But with over 1,000 pages to read just for the standards and directive, and with countless papers to the topic, and with all the side information, will it be even possible to be ready before the reporting period starts? I will try to learn this really fast. And I will also try to develop a plan how to start this within the next 2 weeks. Can I do this while also working on other projects? Let's find out. First, let me share with you a bit of the CSRD background. The CSRD basically mandates sustainability reporting for most of the bigger companies. To have everyone report in a similar way, the EU set some standards, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, which should make sure that the reports might be comparable and easy to understand. These standards will tell the companies exactly, well, more or less exactly, on how to report on each of the topics. But why does the EU want so many companies to report on their sustainability efforts? Well, in a nutshell, they want to steer money into more sustainable business. And by having companies report on their sustainability efforts, they make sure that it becomes more visible which companies are doing better in sustainability terms. So how did I start upskilling? Well, with the other sustainability reporting standards, I directly jumped into the reporting standard text. For the CSRD, the standards are the ESRS standards, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, and they read a lot like a legal textbook, which they are, and make it really difficult to work along with it directly. So I decided to first have a look at some webinars, blog posts and papers which were issued by consultancy companies or ESG software companies or chartered accountants. I learned a lot about the basic structure of the standards and that I don't only have to look into the standards, but also into the implementation guidance and the Q&A documents that the standard setter provided. Then I used AI to find out about the differences and similarities between the standards I already knew and worked with and the ESRS standards, which also gave me a good overview. The main difference is that the ESRS standards are compulsory for European big companies, whereas GRI and SASB standards are voluntary standards. Then there's a next big difference, and that is that GRI and ESRS are focusing on double materiality, so impact and financial materiality, whereas SASB is mainly focusing on financial materiality. However, one thing I really like about the SASB standards, which the others don't provide at that scale, is the already pre-done work on industry-specific standards and KPIs. So I decided that I will still use the SASB standards to find out about material topics and to use it for the CSRD or ESRS reporting as well. Then, after having a basic understanding about what the standards are all about and how I can use them, I jumped back into the ESRS legal text and I found my way quite more easily through it. Except for the first two so-called cross-cutting standards, the others are quite similar on each of the topics, and they are basically first looking at the objectives of the standard. So what is it done for? Then they describe their disclosure requirements, and then in the appendix, which is not like an usual appendix, this appendix is as important as the rest of the document. It basically describes how to disclose. Working only with the standards to do the reporting to me feels a bit complicated because of the language of the standards. So I decided to use a commented version. This one is in German, but I'm sure there are others out in English or other languages as well. And I'm also using this book, which is also summarizing the standards in a more understandable way. The next step then, and probably the most important one for me, was to connect with other people who were in the same situation. Sustainability managers of different companies who also need to report according to the ESRS standards, to set up an exchange group. And this exchange is so important because I was able to connect with them and exchange about all the questions that we have and all the questions that I didn't even know I had. And I got a lot of tips and experiences and how they basically approached the topic. I learned from their experiences, how did they prepare the workshops, how did they look into the materiality assessment, and so on and so on. Then another good option is to go to industry events. I just went to one of them, and besides the sessions, which were really fantastic, there was also the big advantage of, again, meeting many people who were in the same situation. I mean, when do you sit in a room with about 300 to 400 people who have exactly the same tasks in front of them and who are as clueless as you are? And I had so many learnings that I will pack into some future videos when I continue to share my journey on how to report according to CSRS. Okay, getting familiar with the standard is the first step. My next step will be to prepare for the upcoming job and to familiarize myself with the sector the company is in and to prepare for the sector-specific CSRD reporting.